Rahubat Musa, Anuki Saken Sakambre. Greetings, family. My name is Saken Sakambre. Now, before I get into the whiteboard class for today, I'm just reflecting on the title. I want to talk about genius and the hidden science of the letter G. Before we get into it, we're approaching May the 8th. May the 8th is a very bitter day in terms of memories for us, because this was the day our master teacher, our father, Parnabab Yanun, Dr. Malachi Z. York, was kidnapped wrongfully, May the 8th, 2002. We're never going to stop fighting until our master teacher, our father, Parnabab Yanun, is back home with us, completely exonerated of these false allegations that they have used to incarcerate him. We love you, Baba. We love our master teacher so much that until our last breath, we will not stop fighting for him to be home with us. We refer to him as Baba Africa. And when I look at the world today, that's why I'm really dedicating this whiteboard class to Parnabab Yanun. And the title is inspired by him, Genius and the Hidden Science of the letter G. As I look around the world today, and you can see like the rise of Africa with Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, and how many people have been charged and motivated and looking at him and saying he's a genius in terms of what he's doing and what he has done since taking leadership of his country in the last 18 months or so. And all he has done is really take charge and say, look, enough is enough. Africa for Africans, and the resources of his country are for his people. They're being very fair in terms of getting tractors for the farmers so they can produce food to feed themselves. He's very humble. And the West, by way of France and the US and even some parts of Europe, have tried to tarnish his reputation and say that he needs to be removed and so forth. And his people have stood up in his defense. Even the Africans in the diaspora around the world have said enough is enough. They're not having it. There's nothing wrong with people standing up to be fair and to live for and by themselves without intervention or some sort of dictatorship from the West, the colonialism, the ancient colonizers. Even myself, people say, oh, you're such a genius, flattering as it may be, because they say things like, you got so many degrees. And I'm like, I didn't even have any interest in academia when I was growing up. I didn't like school. I did the bare minimum to get by. Some of the subjects like mathematics, when they started to teach algebra and equations and certain things, the way it was taught didn't hold my interest at all. So I'm saying all that to say that my genius, if you want to call it that, was unlocked by no other than Parnabab Yanun. It was when I started to read the scrolls put forth by Dr. Malachi Z. York that gave me a buzz for knowledge. It was then I actually took an interest in learning. I wanted to know everything about science, about the world, about spirituality. So if you would like to unlock the genius in you, your genius, then this is what the topic is about today. So stick with it to the end. On the topic of Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, I'm saying that if the whole world can stand up and in support of Ibrahim and the buzz that's going around, and he's dealing with one country, what should we be doing for Parnabab Yanun? A being that is here for humanity, for the entire planet, for the entire Africans worldwide. Like, don't you think the same way we are standing up? I see people on social media saying, if you touch Ibrahim, you're touching all of us. And not to take anything away from him, but Parnabab Yanun has built communities, has been teaching and lifting people up in terms of spirituality, in terms of every angle you can think of, with over 1,000 books built a whole city, right, in Egypt of the West, in Littleton, Georgia, for Shady Dale Road, and built other communities, liberated and lifted up so many people around the world. And yet, we don't see the same type of energy in bringing about the plight that he's already going through, being incarcerated wrongfully. See, we don't want to wait, like with the Abraham situation, we don't want to wait till he's incarcerated and then everyone's fighting to get him out for 20 years. Partner Bab needs to be released now. This, whiteboard class is dedicated to him. So when we look at what makes a person a genius, or the word, I know there's a reflection on this board, so I'm try and see if I can write where you can see that. So we're going to look at genius and the hidden secret or science of the letter G. Now, when we say the word genius, right, before we even get into the details, let's look at the G. The G, very important, right? Remember the G. Let's pay attention to the G. All right, so when we look at the word genius, I see genius is us. We are the geniuses. And that word genius relates to the word, or comes from the word, genie. Right? Genie. And the G became, right? Before I get into what it became, right? Remember this. So the G is, remember I said, pay attention to the G. It's literally a circle and a square, right? You can see, if I was to draw this a bit more symmetrical, right? You can see that if I carried on with the dots around, like that will make the circle, right? And the same if I did this, put the dots there and bring it down. You see the circle and the square. And the circle obviously is 360 degrees mathematically, and the square is also 360 degrees mathematically because of the 4 right angles, which are 90 degrees each, right? And 90 times 4 gives you 360. And of course, when you add the two together, you get 720 degrees. So the circle is representative of the unseen world, right? Or the spiritual world, or those things which people say cannot be seen. And square represents the physical world, or the seen world, that which can be seen. And the 7 plus 2 gives you 9 to the 9th power of 9, which we said is 9 ether. Very important. So if we keep going with the genie, remember the genie is a being that pops out once you rub it or you do the right thing, and it comes out and it gives you your 3 wishes. 3 is obviously very significant because 3 times 3 gives you 9, because multiplication function is to increase. So to get to the highest, plus will only give you 6. 3 plus 3, 6. So to go higher or further is multiplication, which gives you 9 ether. Now, this G, I want to make sure that the reflection is not in the way. So let's take that G over here, and right, this G became, in the language in terms of pronunciation, was G, or G, which became T, because again, different accents became key, because the K and the Q phonetically sound the same, right? So G, circle and square, dealing with spiritual, physical, give you this higher mathematics, or the hidden sides of the G. This G becomes geo, right? Now, geo is important because you get, geometry. Now that geometry, if you look at the end part of metry, ends up being meter, metrig, metra, meter, because like measuring things, meter, geometry, where you get also geography. Geography obviously deals with finding things, locations, fossils, geology, right? Which is next, which goes into, so geography, where you are, geology, dealing with archaeology. And this goes into trying to find out things, right? So we say, when you're looking at mass land, geology, where we come from, how did things come about, you end up with what they say the beginning, Genesis, as some people think that is the beginning. And we know that is a person, where we know that if you're talking about the genealogy or how people came about, this is a woman. So a woman would be first, even though you're told differently in religion. So when we're dealing with the genesis of Isis, Isis obviously is from Egypt, where you get the Osiris, Isis, and Horus story from, which becomes God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Ghost, which gives you the Trinity. Instead of, so this is, let me just bring it over here. So we take that already, get Osiris, Isis, and Horus, which becomes God the Father, the Mother, Holy. Remember again, the G, Holy Ghost. So they say 1, 2, and 3, giving you a Trinity, right? Giving you a Trinity. But we know that that story, that these names are Greek renditions of our ancestors from ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, in our story, we put the order right. So we would have mother first, or the M, other, because the M or the mother brings about others, as in men and women come from the mother. So the mother and then all the others, right? So the mother will be number 1 in the rightful place. Then the father will be number 2, right? Because the mother creates the father and the boys as well as the girls, male and female, created she, them. All right, so that's number 2. The mother and father then will give birth to the sons and daughters, and that will be number 3. And then from that, you will get, once you take your first breath, you start to live, that will give you the Holy Spirit, all right? Not the ghost. And these 4 together give you a quality. God 4, right? So in the monotheistic religions, they take out the woman because they just go, the father, that was a mistake. They say the Father, the Son. Yeah, that's what they do. They say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and leave out the mother and other, whom is really number 1, but they mean the rap. So that's why I put her there first. Mother, Father, sons and daughters, Holy Spirit. Okay. But there is a 5th part to this, which is the soul. So you heard of the movie, The Fifth Element, right? So you have, not everyone has a soul. So this is where they will stop, which is why they always say father, because men were the ones that are responsible for the writings and religion, etc. And they leave out a mother, replace the mother with the son, as if without a mother, they could have a father or a son. But anyway, going back to this now, because we're dealing with Genesis. I just digressed a bit to show you where they get it from ancient Egypt. This Genesis then deals with what? The gen, they say, I already put up here genealogy, but genealogy deals with what? Genetics, right? The building blocks of life. So when we start to look at the genetics and how these people come about, how does genius come about, right? They say geniuses are often inspired, or they receive information or affirmation from a higher source. And when we probe as to who is this higher source, we see that this G, once again, pops up as the being there called God. The G's there again. Look at the G. G's. Anyway, so this God is referred to by some, right? So God in Masonry, they say Oma, Oz, and the Ba, and which are attributes of a being. They say wisdom, strength, and beauty, which are all attributes of a physical person. But they refer to him, another G, as this is a phrase well known in, this is Masonry, right? Mason, or Masons, my sons, because Ma, like Papa, Mama, is the sons of the mother. But anyway, and these sons are brought about by GA, could be even, the acronym can be messed around and you get the word GOAT, greatest of all time. But that's a whole different story, because that goes into the GOAT or Mendes and tying into what I said before about the Luciferian conspiracy and who these luminaries or these Luciferians are that are basically putting the spell on you. But this stands for grand, so the G's, grand architect of the universe. Remember, in Wusabat, we told you, do your research. Don't believe what we say, check it out. So God, right? To come in, go my order on the bar. These Masons are builders, right? Builders. That's what a Mason is. So when you're a builder, you're an architect. So when you say the architect of the universe, tying into what I just said about geniuses, they are people that have been chosen or that are special in some way, and they inspired or they received their information from a higher source. And some would say, right, they will tap into their unconscious. I hope that the light's not reflecting. Let me write it a bit further down so that you can see the unconscious. So these geniuses, they tap into the unconscious mind or a state outside of themselves, either by way of being influenced or receiving information, or beings come from somewhere else, like the angels, or in terms of Islam, where you have Gabriel coming to Muhammad and giving him information, and so on and so forth, right? So they will say they tap into, now they will say, but Akasha or Akasha records, or they could say that they're tapping into a higher mental state. We say the mental reservoir. The mental reservoir is outside of your mind, or outside of your head. So now, when we start to go into who this God is, and we tap into Masons, and we say they're architect, they're the builders. What did they build? If you go and look at the best buildings, or the best building in the world, you end up in Egypt, the source of most information. Where when you look at, even start to look at, okay, who is this God? And depending on which culture you're coming from, if we stick with Christianity, they're going to say the sun that we're talking about here is Jesus, the Son of God, who came from God, came down here and did all these wonderful things. We know that ties into Jah, because there are no J's or B's, but we know it's Jah, but we just say Jah and Zeus, all right, which gives you this word Jesus from Romans and Greeks. I'm saying all this to say that when we're talking about genius and we start to look at the people considered to be geniuses or that are supposed to be of higher intellect, and where we're getting all this knowledge from, you look at Ancient Aliens, Discovery Channel, and they say discovery, but we know they're really uncovering, right? Uncovering that which was already there. But you're going to end up with Romans, Greeks, they might even go into the East, like China, India, and talk about Plato, Einstein, Da Vinci, and in modern times, they will talk about people like Tesla. These are supposed to be geniuses or people that are of high intellect, and they tap into a source outside of themselves or a higher consciousness, and they're able to do brilliant and wonderful things. Now, in all of that, you don't hear anything about Africa. Like Africa doesn't get mentioned. I watch these shows, I watch people talk about how these geniuses, they will even mention Hawkins and all these people, but there's no Africa. So there's a problem with that, especially when we start to go to Egypt and deal with building, and you realize that the best builders are the people that built the pyramids. And the mathematics of the pyramids is phenomenal. We could be here forever trying to decipher them, because the pyramids were once the tallest building in the world. The mathematics in terms of when you look at the planet, I'm really trying to avoid that reflection so you can see what I'm writing, but let me write it over there. So when you look at the planet Earth, right, this is Earth, and anything that comes from outside, right, let's call this out formation, because this is what we have been given as students of Parnavadan. Out formation that comes in and becomes information when it's inside the planet. Now, if we drew a cup, right, let's say this is a cup, all right, put a handle on there as well. Okay, there you go, cup. Now, there's a space that is considered inside, which you can put something in. Now, when you put something inside the cup, it's not outside the cup. So, out formation comes inside the planet from somewhere else. And when we probe further as to where this is coming from, they said it's inspired, or the geniuses, they go into a state of meditation or tap into a higher mental consciousness, meditation. They receive this information. You know, Muhammad had to go into a cave and then tune in to receive information. So the point is, why is Egypt left out? Egypt is in Africa, right? And in times of trouble, all the smartest people run to Egypt. Plato, as I mentioned before, Aristotle, Pythagoras, they all go to Egypt. Even in your biblical stories, Jesus had to be taken to safety when Herod was trying to kill all the first male children that were being born. Moses was found in a basket in Egypt. They say Abraham went to Egypt. Joseph and his whole family had to seek refuge in Egypt. Everyone goes to Egypt when there's famine, when there's trouble. But yet, when we're talking about genius, we're not mentioning the people from Africa, the original people from Africa, which is us. So there's definitely some injustice or racism or some hidden agenda, because these Luciferians that are subduing and keeping you down don't want you to know or tie back in and connect back to Egypt, okay? And when you look at the pyramids, The word pira or pyra, right? Pyra, mid. Mid is middle. Translates as middle fire. So when I was talking about this soul tying into your solar plexus, dealing with the sun, because even when you start to read, as I said, the Bible, and you look at Revelations 3:14, when it talks about I'm one witness the creation of God, it's because these monotheistic religions, these religions are taken from Egypt, pyramid, that middle fire. That's the fire that needs to be ignited for you to spark your soul, to spark you connecting and reaching to the higher levels of consciousness or information, as we have been taught by the master teacher, Parnabab Yanun. So when people are talking about tapping into these Akasha records or going into alpha wave or going into a state where you kind of like connect or detach from the physical to reach these higher levels, which we know that when we start to deal with the spirit, the soul, and things that deal with esoteric information, this is why I was saying they will go as far as India or go as far as teaching you about Hinduism or Buddhism, but they don't talk about Africa, because these higher realms we know as ether, as I mentioned before, but we're talking about 9 ether in adverse to 6 ether. Okay, this energy that everyone's trying to tap into, that they're calling the mental state of consciousness, the Akasha records, where all this information is stored, is dealing with higher levels or 9 ether. And so when we start to look at this 9 to the 9 power of 9, it's because that energy is limitless. There's a movie actually called Limitless that talks about or shows a depiction of how limitless your mind can really be when you tap into the mental reservoir, when you tap into the higher consciousness. Not everyone can reach those higher states. Some beings are only able to get to 6, right? Because remember, you're talking about a scale from 1 or from 0 to 9, etc. to 9, all right? We as 9 ether, when we say 9 ether is the combination of all existing conscious and conscience gases. So imagine all the gases, all the elements, everything combined into one. That's 9 ether. So now scientists are talking about dark energy, dark matter, and delving into, well, what are the building blocks when we're saying the architect that built the pyramids? Well, we're talking about what they say the building blocks are atoms, but atoms get to a state where the smallest they knew about or spoke about was the hydrogen. But when you go beyond hydrogen, when you're going into this direction, where if you go from the physical, right, you're going to go into the ether, or E1, E2 to 9 levels, right, going that way. So this ether energy is what is the glue on, or what holds everything together. Whatever you're considering to be a thing, quantifiable, is held by ether. So to unlock your genius, you have to tap into your middle fire, the soul, or the solar plexus. And you have to start applying 9 ether mind, 9 ether energy, 9 ether information. And when they say these beings that are inspiring these geniuses or the people that have this information, they call them what? Some type of higher being, more intelligent being, and they call them extraterrestrials. But you have different types of extraterrestrials, and you have extraterrestrials who have a plan to subjugate and restrain and keep you vibrating on lower consciousness so that you do not wake up to your high potential and to know who and what you really are. And these agendas by these Luciferians are what Partner Babylon has come to do, is to get rid of these 6 ether forces that are permeating the planet and keeping people in a lower vibration, in a low state. And so he's the ET that they're talking about. And although you have a plan by other ETs, the Luciferians or those that are adverse to nine ether, 6 ether beings, their time has come to an end. They from 1966, okay, 6th of June 1966, you see how all this is lined up, was the days of 6 ether forces, which ended fully on 9th of September 1999, right? Which you see all the nines are 9. From that brought in the year 2000, what people refer to as the sun cycle, yeah, the golden age. And this age is the shift in dimension, the raise in consciousness. And one, Parnabab, this ET, he came on the scene telling you he's an extraterrestrial from the planet Risk in the 19th galaxy known as EBO. So when we're talking about genius and why we as Africans are subjugated, why we're held back, it's because they don't want you to connect and tie back to unlocking your genius, knowing who your ancestors are, knowing that you built the pyramids. Because like I was saying, the mathematics of the pyramids is phenomenal. It actually is right at the center of the planet Earth, the mass of the planet, the landmass, right? You start talking the mathematics, it deals with, building using stones of nearly 2 to 3 million stones that weighed up to 15 tons. These pyramids aligned with the sun, the moon, the stars, especially the belt of Orion, the Orion star constellation, and Sirius. There's just so much we can talk about when it comes to the pyramids. And why does it align with the belt of Orion? Because this is where our ancestors came from. And you find this in the biblical books as well, the religious books. Talks about Taurus, talks about Orion, Amos 5:8, Job 9:9. Books of Revelation talks about, the crystal city and beings coming from somewhere else here. But I don't want you to tie into Egypt, because when you look at Egypt, you see us, you see our features, you see the nose, the big nose, the big lips, which they try to demolish and, desecrate by cutting off the noses so you can't see the genetics. Because when you start to look at genetics, going back to the science of the Jeep, you start to see whose features are on the walls, on the walls of Egypt. I mean, why? Why is there such a concentration to hold us back? Which relates back to what I was saying about, Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. Now, we don't really get too much involved in the politics, but it's amazing to see how the world is reacting to someone doing such good works for his people. Now, look upon Ababianun, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, what he has done for the planet and what he's here to do for humanity. Raise the entire consciousness of people of the planet. And yet, he has been incarcerated falsely, and the world is not doing the same thing in terms of rallying around and that bus. Be motivated. We need to get Panabab Janin home this year. It's enough. Everyone said enough is enough. What is wrong with us looking after ourselves, doing for, by, and of each other? Every one of our leaders has taught us the same thing, that there is power in our unity. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the same thing. Do for self, So to unlock your genius, we're talking about first, the master teacher has come with the first thing telling us, look, I'm an extraterrestrial. This book came out in the 90s, Man from Planet Risk. The Man from Planet Risk. Mine is even falling apart. That's how long I've had it. Where it tells you about being the extraterrestrial that has been sent here to bring about this new era that we're in, the sun cycle. And in order for you to do that, you have to firstly tap into your mind, the mind, because the is that middle ground that connects you to the higher consciousness. So you have to tackle the mind so that you can be aware of the tricks by the Luciferians, so that you can know your potential. Most of us do not know the hidden genius within us and how we have the potential to do anything. So your potential will unlock that. These are not by coincidence. These books have been written by design to deal with you raising your consciousness, right? So that you can tap into. I'm gonna read from this scroll called. Give me a minute. Let me just find it. There you go. This scroll. If you can't see these, we'll put the images, in the video. Right. This is intelligent design, divine design, or plot of aliens. This is actual facts number 46, which talks about, I'm going to read you a little excerpt from page 42. It says, the barythry gland worked with the appendix and the tonsils. The removal of the barythry gland cut off your 4 higher senses: telepathy, clairvoyance, intuition, and psychometry, which affects your 5 lower senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, and feeling. And they all affected by the hippocampus part of the brain, whose purpose is well known to modern science, is the tissue which held the barythry gland when inside the brain of the Adamites was also removed. Before I, Parnababianun Ningizida, was able to incarnate into the body of this child, they had to see which humanoid seed I would plant it into, and to reinsert the barythry gland in the child in the submental area beneath the chin. That's this area here. And so when you start to read these scrolls by Parnababianun, like I said, get your mind right, tap into your higher potential, then you will start to address the Luciferian conspiracy by these beings who have set out to stop you from knowing really from what you are, and to tap it into your higher genius and to unlock your genius. And these beings who have written history according to his story, right? These beings are part of this Luciferian agenda, and their purpose is to stifle your growth, to stop you from tapping into being the genius that you really are. The master teacher has put out the Akasha Records. The Akasha Records is what most people are trying to talk about and tap into now, which he has already broken down for us in terms of your Medist and the records that you can tap into. And this mental reservoir, you can only access it if you've been raised and the most intelligent being on the planet, known as Tahuti. Remember I said the grand architect of the universe. Look at it, the grand Hierophant, Tahuti, who many know as Thoth, or they say Hermes Trismegistus in the Greek. This is the reincarnation, the scribe, the being that wrote. We see him as many depictions, and normally with the quill or the beak looking mask on, which is symbolic of the pen. And Parnababianun's power is in the pen, which is guiding. Then we start to look at, remember, I said already, the woman, it's her time, the quality. Don't worry if you can't, if it's back to front, we'll put the actual images. The quality, not leaving out the mother, because the mother, that ones that produce others, the other mother, has the mitochondrial DNA, which has been passed down, and the records are kept. The genetic records are kept from female to female offspring, from mother to daughter to mother to daughter. You see, so These are all sciences that are now being revealed. And when you start to look at, as I was saying, the genealogy, the genesis, the genetics, you've got the designer genes. Because now, with the deciphering of the Human Genome Project in 1953, all genes that make you up, what causes certain ailments, gives you certain abilities so that you can be a genius. They can now tell you that gene is responsible for that ability. Designer genes. This is another master secret. Many secrets are being revealed and secreted to us in this day and time. Series number 22, the designer genes. You got to look at that. And once you start to tap into that, you start to realize how your brain functions. This is called neuroscience of Wu-Nawak. And neuroscience of Wu-Nawak, I'll just read another excerpt from this. Right, this is series number 28, Neuroscience of Wu-Nawak. I'm going to read from verse 21, page 3. It says, the process of neurogenesis is the ability for the brain to grow new neurons. Neurons are electrically excitable cells that process and transmit information by electrical and chemical signaling. The brain is constantly undergoing its own stem cell therapy through the process of neurogenesis. Every moment of your life, new neurons are growing from stem cells. Human beings indeed have the ability to grow new brain neurons. All organs cannot regenerate. The brain acts like a holographic computer, charged battery with many cells grouped, and your memory is stored in a higher drive called mental. And you receive them or thoughts from the mental reservoir to your personal mind. And each thought becomes your own or mine, my own. Your lip is your etheric cord or code and can be tapped into and even given viruses called insanity, or they say out of your mind. That ties into what I was saying here, because when you look at a basic operating system or computer system has input and output, and the quality of what you put in kind of determines what you get out. So between the input and the output, you have processing, right? That's why when I was talking about Intel, right? Remember, Intel is dealing with intelligence, right? So Intel, this is why I say the manufacturers of computers is known as Intel, right? Well, you're dealing with intelligent, look at the G in it, intelligence. And the most intelligent being on the planet is Parnababiano. Tell in the genes or the genetics. So when I say a basic computer system has input, output, the processing unit is your mind or your brain, which connects to the mental reservoir, to these Akasha records. And you have to be able to tap into that to receive, and your neurons fire out to unlock your genius. And then you obviously have, in addition to the input, output, the processing, you have memory, referred to as your conscious or unconscious memory, where you store information. So in a computer system, you have your RAM, you have ROM, read-only memory, or random access memory. Then you have your hard drive or the hard disk, where you store information. But once you store too much junk, or you can even store a virus that can contaminate your system, the same view. So you can receive a virus by wrong information, by doing the wrong things. You're constantly receiving. That's why I say coming in, observation, you're receiving information all the time from the sun, from the environment, from the lights that come to you, from the fabrics that you wear. You know, your eyes are solar panels. So when you're looking at these devices like the cell phones, the tablets, computer screens, you're receiving light information that will affect you. And when your hard drive is filled with crap, you need to what? Defrag. You need to do antivirus to get rid of the virus. It's the same with you. All your life, you've been given misinformation or wrong information or plain out lies, and you're full, and you need to defrag. Defragmentation is putting things back in order, getting rid of crap, and clearing up space so you can receive more. If you're just full with, some say junk DNA or junk information, if your hard drive is full, you've got a really important document or new information you want to save, you can't unless you delete something. So we're in the day and time where you have to delete all the 6 ether information and wrong information, misinformation that has trapped in the matrix. And this is what the most intelligent being on the planet, the ET from Planet Risk, this is the being with the most information that is here to help us raise our consciousness so that we could actually make this dimensional shift and become supreme beings and be able to tap into the godliness, to your genius. They call some of these beings savants because they're so intelligent. You know, there are documentaries where people bumped their head or had an accident, and all of a sudden pineal gland or third eye is open and they can see to dimension. They can see formulas. They can see things and use more of their brain. Most people use less than 10% of their brain. So to be a genius, you have to unlock, and you have to unlock that which has been hidden with the secret information, the master's secrets. And that's what Partner Badlanine is here to do, so that you can receive your barothry gland again. Bara deals with soul. Ba, we can hear it. Ba, bara, that ba. To receive your barothry gland so you can tap into your soul and reach your highest potential. And when you do that, you can see how God taught the stargates. Because when we're dealing with these extraterrestrials and beings, how are they able to come here, travel intergalactically? How do they know the routes or the portals where to go through to come in and out of this prison that we're in called Earth or the Matrix? Some beings are quarantined here. You will not be able to leave there unless you upgrade and raise yourself, both in consciousness, vibrations, and just mentality. You've got to put away the foolish choice. You know, it's time to be a grown-up. And so once you do that, you tap into this energy that we're calling 9 ether, physical ethers. Ethers in everything, but different vibrations or level. The higher the levels, the more sound, the information that you will receive, or the affirmation that you will receive into the information. So yes, today's topic has been genius, the big G, literal G, which is the games they play, because it's really you that's the God, if you want to use that term. But really, we are supreme beings. We are the new teachers of the new 24,000-year cycle, where you have to level up. You have to use 9 mind, 9 reason. You see, information is good, but there's right information or wrong information, or we'll say right knowledge against wrong knowledge. You need right knowledge, right wisdom, and the right understanding that will lead you to sound right reasoning. And when you're reasoning correctly, you know exactly what needs to be done. And that is us coming together, just as we all coming together to support Ibrahim doing something for his country. We're looking at doing something on a bigger scale, dealing with humanity, dealing with Africans in the whole world. It's time. It's 9 Easter time. And anyone is welcome who is about raising their consciousness, their vibration, and leaving behind these low vibrations of hate, racism, jealousy. These are vibrations that are holding humanity back, and we have to elevate to the point where we're more intelligent and using our intelligence in the most effective and productive way as geniuses. So this is the year. come together, spark off that heart seed, yeah, with your love, divine love for the master teacher, who needs to be free. It's enough. Enough is enough.